All right, guys, it's time to write. It is time to do this. So our issue was making, or the topic once again was all about, should we make voting in federal elections mandatory? So really the issue comes down to democratic participation. What we're going to do here, folks, is write our intro blurb, and then we'll do our 2 paragraphs, one on Citizen 1 and one on Citizen 2. At that point, we'll have satisfied exploring the issue and then analyzing 2 points of view on the issue. That's the requirement of the assignment. Other than that, then we have to look at how to do that last paragraph where you give your opinion on whether or not mandatory voting should be introduced in Canada. So let's start writing our little intro blurb. So democracy is an important characteristic of the nation of Canada. However, I'm just going to move this out of the way, boop, 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 over here. However, we have seen at times that there is a glut in voter participation known as voter apathy. Routinely, Canadians, or I'll say routinely, only about 6 out of every 10 Canadians is actually choosing to vote in federal elections. So here now we're showing how it's an issue, right? Some say that the federal government must do something about this and that mandatory voting should be introduced for the continued health of our democracy. Others, however, say that Canada is a free nation and people should not be forced to do anything against their will. Boom, done. Well, let's just do this. The issue comes down to responsibilities and rights in a free and democratic nation. Okay, let me just highlight this. Home, we want to double space this, just see how it looks. Yep, that's about right. So again, guys, that's our little intro blurb, right? That is our little intro blurb. So let's continue on here, right? Now that we're done that little introduction to the idea of mandatory voting, let's start to address the different speakers. And again, I'm only doing speaker 1 and speaker 2. So when it comes to the issue of mandatory voting, Citizen 1 believes that it is not the job of government to make voting something that all citizens must do, right? Actually, instead of saying Citizen 1, let's say one belief is So one belief is that it is not the job of government to make voting something that all citizens must do. People who are against mandatory voting look at the fact that more than half of Canadians, about 60%, are turning out to vote when there are federal elections. And this is clearly more than those who are choosing to stay home, period. Okay, so I just basically did this. So I'm going to highlight it, right? I'm going to highlight it. All right, so I want to integrate this idea now into my paragraph. So an individualist would focus on the rights of the individual in this case. And if people have the right to choose to vote, then they also have the right to choose not to vote, because that is how freedom works. Oh, look at me, I'm jazzing it up. Jazzing it up. Okay, we got this right here. I'm going to highlight that. Boom, I've taken care of that. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. So what I put here, much like how people have the right to freedom of speech, freedom of expression, the right to vote is something that comes with. So just like all the other rights that we are given as per our Constitution and also the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, it is not the role of government to tell us how to use these rights. Would say an individualist. Boom. Beautiful. Let's work in Locke and Mill, and then we got a nice paragraph here. An individualist would believe in the ideals of classical liberal philosophers such as John Locke or J.S. Mill. Locke argued that the role of government is not to intrude in our lives, but it is instead to protect our natural rights to life, liberty, and, wow, if I could spell, and property. Forcing someone to vote extends beyond this role. Additionally, J.S. Mill would also support the right to abstain from voting based on the harm principle. Mill would argue that as long as not voting is not causing anybody else physical harm. I'm just going to put in brackets, which it doesn't, then an individual should be allowed to do this. Boom! Beautiful. Got my mill, got my lock. Life is good. Okay? All right. That is citizen number 1. Let's move on to citizen number 2. Okay, let's move on to citizen number 2. I'm just going to scroll this down over here, and then I'm going to move down here. I should have mentioned before, as I'm thinking about this, this person is a socialist, right? They take a greater good argument. Okay, opposite to citizen 1, we have citizen 2, who believes that the government should make voting in federal elections a mandatory thing for Canadians to do. Boom. This, we'll say collectivists who believe in this state that voter apathy is killing our democratic system, and if we want to preserve it, we must get people active and engaged in the democratic process. A strong and vibrant democracy requires all people who are eligible to ensure they are doing their part. To sustain it. Okay, let's highlight that. We got that. Citizens who feel that voting should be mandatory. Okay, so I'm moving on to the next part right here. Say that, with rights come responsibilities, much like how we have the right to public health care, we have the responsibility to help fund that health care through our tax dollars. Now, why did I do that? Why did I put much like how? Why did I bring in an example like this right here? I did that to demonstrate. One second. Sorry about that. I did that to demonstrate how I can apply this knowledge to other situations, right? So much like how we have the right to public health care, we'll say in Canada, because not all people have that right. We have the responsibility to help fund that healthcare through our tax dollars. In this case, much like how we have the right to democracy, we also have the responsibility to participate in this democracy at the most basic of levels and that is to vote. Sorry, let me just scroll down here. There we go. Active participate in democracy, apathy is cancer. Voter apathy is citizens who believe in mandatory voting. Take the argument that voter apathy is a cancer to our democracy and steps need to be taken to reverse this trend, such as mandatory voting. The nation of Australia has mandatory voting, and in this nation, if you do not vote, you receive a fine of $20 or possible jail time for not participating in an election. As a result, an overwhelming majority of Australians are engaged as citizens in the democratic process. Boom. This engagement is good for the health of their democracy and is something that Canada should emulate as well. Boom! So we got this, apathy, cancer, all this stuff. And yeah, this socialist, I'll say this, collectivist, people with collectivist, socialist opinions, such as this, believe that mandatory voting can be explained as something for the greater good of the nation. There you go. So I added a little bit of ideological understanding here, right? People with collectivist / socialist opinions, such as we'll say such as Citizen 2, believe that mandatory voting can be explained as something for the greater good of the nation. All right, let's see how much we got so far here. Whew! Look at us go. Look at us go. And at this point now, guys, all we have to do is our opinion. Oh, this is so easy. I love it. Okay. So yeah, we'll look at the fourth paragraph here right after this video. All right. Peace, guys. Love you. This has been fun. We should do this more. Except, you know, this is your last written assignment ever. So, okay. Check you later. Bye.